The UK has no evidence that Moscow is trying to undermine the democratic process in Britain. That's according to the country's Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson. He did note, however, that the Kremlin has the ability to interfere in Britain's affairs if it so chooses.
We have no evidence that the Russians are actually involved in trying to undermine our democratic processes at the moment. We haven't.
So why are the security services making that precise
warning?
We
don't actually have that evidence. But what we do have is plenty of evidence that the Russians are capable of doing that.
Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson making quite astounding claims on the flagship Peston show that despite having no evidence that the Russians are involved in hacking, they must be responsible because, frankly, they have the capability. And he also joins other British politicians in throwing such accusations against the Russians.
There is now clear evidence of Russian direct corrupt involvement in elections in France, in Germany, in the United States of America, and I would argue also in this country. Many believe that some of the highest level decisions affecting security in the United Kingdom, in Germany, in France and in the United States of America are now compromised by Russian infiltration.
Chris Bryant there accusing the Russians of hacking many countries' elections, including the UK, and perhaps trying to disrupt the Brexit referendum as well. Now, despite all of these claims, again, no evidence put forward. The case is the same when it comes to France. The presidential candidate there, Emmanuel Macron, claiming that the Russians have been trying to hack into his emails. Now, he was in London just a few weeks ago when I tried to catch up and ask him for some evidence on these accusations, and he couldn't quite give me an answer.
Do you have any evidence that Russian hackers are hacking your emails?
No, I don't. I mean, we have evidence of attacks coming from Ukraine and Russia. We have evidence of the fact that some very well-known Russian website conveyed remorse and common opinion. So we just make a wake-up call, and I noticed that our president and the national security advisors reacted very promptly about this.
And will you release it? Will you release it? Will you release the evidence?
Germany also raised the alarm of potential Russian involvement in upcoming elections in the European country. But after a year-long investigation, the BND said that no such evidence exists. So many accusations and many claims, but a consistent theme. Most of this based on unnamed sources, and when our evidence is asked for, nothing has been put forward.
Earlier, we heard from Alexander Thompson, a former British intelligence officer who now writes for the UK Column News. He believes Western countries themselves do things that they're accusing Russia of doing.
BBC media action and to some extent BBC monitoring do with evidence precisely the things which the Russians are accused of. I think that the British and Americans are used to making accusations stick simply by their own gravitas. We shape hearts and minds through docudramas and something quite perilously close to election shaping in that whole belt of countries. The evidence that the Russians do it to us is not forthcoming. Yes, capabilities are there, all right, but actually to do it would be an act of aggression. I think that's the key point, and NATO is making noises about this. If it really wants election interference to be regarded as an act of aggression suitable for triggering Article 5 commitments in NATO, then they jolly well ought to come out and present the evidence to the public now.
The Russian hacking hysteria started in the US with numerous accusations. Moscow hacked the Democratic National Committee and interfered in the presidential elections. Despite a thorough investigation having been carried out, the intelligence community, no evidence has been provided to support the allegations. Instead, those making the claims simply rely on the levels of confidence among top officials.
A lot of it is classified, and we're not going to provide it.
Some of that evidence may not be something that we want to show.
Russia clearly tried to meddle in our political system.
It doesn't mean that there isn't additional evidence out there. I'm sure that there is.
This administration is 100% certain